Hello everyone, Genshin Impact is a game that came out over 4 years ago, and in that time it has won many players' hearts. For many, it was the first game in this genre. It was able to capture the attention of players because of its graphics, story, and gorgeous characters. Some came because of the addictive combat mechanics that are still going strong. Today I'm going to explain how the meta in Genshin Impact has changed from Update 1.0 to the release of Update 2.0. In this video, you'll learn about the characters that appeared during this period, the teams that were popular back then, and more. Let's start with the 1.0 release. It's worth mentioning that there weren't that many squads at that time. If you count all the characters at the time of the 1.0 release, there were only 21 of them, not counting the Traveler. Venti was considered to be the best support at the time because of his ability to pull opponents into one place. Considering that before patch 2.0 there were no bosses in Spiral Abyss and instead there were crowds of small enemies or a few large ones, Venti's skill was incredibly useful. Version 1.0 released a lot of useful characters that remain popular to this day. Xingqiu is still one of the strongest support characters because of his Hydro Swords. Bennett, Xiangling, Fischl, and Sucrose are just as still high on the current rankings. Strangely few useful 4-star characters have been released in future updates. Klee was considered the strongest character at the time, and many people tried to learn how to cancel her charge attack animation as the damage would become huge. The most popular team with Klee consisted of Sucrose or Venti, Xingqiu, and Bennett. Klee was not the only pyro character of interest. Players also wanted Diluc, so they spent a lot of Primo Gems on standard banner. That was the end of the 1.0 update. In Update 1.1, Zhongli and Diona appeared, which set a new meta for all players. Now, if you had at least one of them, you could safely forget about healers because shields turned out to be much more convenient and better. Especially important was the fact that at that time there were no enemies that could hit through these shields. In addition to the new shield-related meta, another character was added to the game that raised the damage bar to a new level. Despite the usefulness of shields, players initially thought that Zhongli would be much stronger. Because of this, there was a lot of resentment among the Genshin community. The developers had to make concessions and made him stronger. This was the only time the character was significantly strengthened after release. Tartaglia turned out to be the most powerful character at the time. A squad with him most often consisted of Xiangling, who gave pyro status, Sucrose, who increased elemental mastery, and Bennett, who increased attack and gave healing. Update 1.2 introduced the characters Albedo and Ganyu and opened up the Dragon Spine map. With this update, teams using reactions such as Taser, Superconduct, and Shatter began to lose popularity. At the same time, teams based on Vaporize, Melt, and Frozen began to gain popularity. Ganyu became the new ultimate damage character that no one could surpass. Due to the fact that she often played with a shield, there were no problems with dodges. The most popular team with Ganyu at that time consisted of Xiangling, Bennett, and Zhongli. After release, Ganyu was considered a very strong character for a long time, but with the introduction of a huge number of new characters, she was sidelined. Update 1.3 brought two very strong characters to the game. Let's start perhaps with Xiao. Xiao was not only very attractive, but also still useful in Spiral Abyss as he could deal area damage. More often than not, squads with Xiao consisted of Bennett, Sucrose, and Xingqiu. The team was really strong but very awkward. It's also worth noting that Xiao back then had a significant difference from what we see now. It was uncomfortable to play as him and his damage was lower than Klee and Ganyu. Huda was the strongest character right after release, but she was very squad dependent. She required a specific squad including Zhongli, Xingqiu, and a third character. More often than not, that third was either Sucrose or Mona. Hu is still one of the strongest characters even now, but at the time, she just seemed like something extraordinary. Update 1.4 was a passable update because of the new characters added only Rosaria, which then began to be used in different ways, either in a team with Hu Tao where Hu Tao hit frozen enemies, or Rosaria was used as a character that deals the main damage. All in all, the version didn't make much of an impression, so there's no point in going deeper. In Update 1.5, two characters appeared in the game who left a noticeable mark in the history thanks to their peculiarities. Let's start with Eula. At the time, Manny no longer considered physical commands a good choice, so the developers decided to remind players that physical damage can also hit hard. Eula was the first to break the 10 million damage bar, and it was because of this that the game's limitations came into play. Eula became one of the strongest characters in the game, and many assumed that the developers would soon start releasing characters that boosted physical damage. However, as time has shown, physical damage is still not in demand and the developers simply stopped releasing characters that use it. Also, this update gave us Yanfei. This is a character that was constantly compared to Klee, pointing out her weaknesses and disadvantages compared to the girl from Mondstadt. However, if you travel 20 versions into the future, you can see that Klee has become much less frequently used than Yanfei. Update 1.6 introduced one of the most powerful support characters, but initially Kazuha didn't catch the attention of players as he was compared to Sucrose and his potential was overlooked. However, time put everything in its place, and by the end of Update 1.6, many players regretted not trying to get this white-haired boy. At that time, the character strength requirements of players were much lower, but despite that, people were already categorizing characters by their strength. Now I'm going to show you a sample character strength table from the end of Update 1.6, which includes 4 categories from S to C. It should be noted that in those lists there were often more categories, up to 8, so the division into 4 types will be somewhat blurred, but in general the situation was roughly like this. The S category was most often Zhongli, Hu Tao, Bennett, Venti, Eula, Ganyu, Diluc, Klee, and Kazuha. The A category included Beidou, Sucrose, Xingqiu, Fischl, Xiangling, Jian, Keqing, Mona, Diona, Tartaglia, Albedo, and Xiao. The B category included Ningguang, Noelle, Razor, Qi, Rosaria, and Yanfei. The C category was occupied by Barbara, Kaya, Lisa, Chongyun, Amber, and Xinyan. Looking at this list now, it's hard to believe some of the positions, but remember what the content was like back then and everything falls into place. The meta in Genshin is constantly changing with new characters, new squad interactions, and new mechanics. The game is becoming more diverse and is enticing more players. Looking back on these updates, we can say that they brought us not only new characters, but also a large number of interesting events. For example, the event with Albedo, where we got the first exclusive weapon for passing the event. It's a pity that the developers don't release events on Dragon Spine anymore, because Albedo is a very interesting character and I would like to know more about him. Also interesting was the event with Scaramouche where we were told about the fake sky for the first time. Can you believe we've known about this since Update 1.1? In Update 1.3, the first Lantern Rite took place. So far, Lantern Rite in Genshin is the biggest and most beautiful event of every year. And in Update 1.6 was the first summer event, which was remembered by players for its warm and relaxed atmosphere. Also in this update were released the first skins on characters. In Update 1.3 we saw triple character banners for the first and only time. All in all, it was an eventful and very warm time in Genshin. Well, that's the end of my story. Thanks for watching, write comments, subscribe to my channel, it gives me more motivation to make videos more often and make them more interesting. See you soon.